Welcome to the Performers Pod, everyone. I'm with one of, I think, like the coolest people making porn right now, Raquel Roper. You're making like you're making like the coolest lesbian BDSM.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That really means a lot to me. Just because I don't think that there's enough of it, honestly. I think it's still one of those things that there's really not a lot of like high quality too. That's something that I really strive for as well. And actually, I'm in the process of filming. The reason why I've been like really ramping up is because I'm making a membership site officially, and it's definitely geared towards lesbian domination. Like I'm putting all of my old content on there, but as far as like new content, like I'm shooting exclusive scenes that you won't be able to see anywhere else for this site. So it's really cool.
That's so cool. So we've met in the weirdest places. Do you remember when we first met?
I like in face-to-face because we've been talking online for a while. Like we became mutuals like years ago, I feel like. And we always have like kept up to date with like what each other is doing and being so supportive of each other's projects, honestly, because you've done some amazing content yourself, especially in regards to like lesbian domination and things that you've done. It's amazing. But yeah, like that one time in Tokyo, no, that was so cool.
We met before that.
Didn't we meet at AVN? Did we meet?
We met. The one I'm thinking of is I was on like some porn set in like LA at some mansion, and I'm like covered in cum, and I'm like,
I completely. Oh my god! I literally like now that you said it, it just went straight to my head. I know exactly what that was. One of my first times in LA, and I remember we had been talking online, and it was just like who else was the other performer that was there that I follow? Aspen Brooks. It was her too. She was on set too. Yeah. So I remember, and you literally had just done like a super intense scene, and we were like, "Hey,
I'm like covered in cum, and you're like walking in."
I was doing.
Yeah, you're walking in for your next shoot. I'm like, oh, we know each other. I'm like, I'm covered in cum right now. I need to shower, but it's so finally nice to meet you.
Oh my god, yeah, because that was actually my first pro girl scene, because that was for Philly Films, and that was a super intense day because it was like outdoors completely, because it was right on like, you know, because that house was like really on top of a fucking like hill, mountain, whatever.
Yeah, and it overlooks so much of like the valley and stuff.
Exactly. So like we shot it all outside, and it had like a rustic feel to it. Like it's one of those scenes where you've done and like you know that it went out, but you never saw it. Like I never saw the pretty girls or anything from it. So if anybody knows what scene I'm talking about, I'd really like to see it of myself, because it was really hot. I know that for sure.
Yeah, and then we met up. I was in Japan doing a screening, and you were just like, "Oh, I'm in Japan. You want to hang out?" And then we hung out.
No, that was so cool because we were following each other on Twitter, and I saw that we were in the same place, and but you failed to mention that your screening was like in an underground old school traditional like shibari BDSM club, which was so sick. And I remember the bartender was this old man dressed in a business suit. Do you remember? Super like classy, and he ran the bar, but he was also the shibari master too.
Yeah,
which
he tied me up.
So sick. And that night was awesome. I thought it was really cool because it really showed like in the culture, like there were so many people there that literally you would have thought that this was an average bar. Like literally like people are just like chilling, and it was like, oh, you can participate in things. But like I honestly have never felt so comfortable in a space before, because it was very much just like, you know, I really dug the vibe for sure.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. My friend, Mistress Katie Kanako, they were one of the bartenders, and they now like make all this like awesome BDSM porn that Trouble Films is releasing from Japan now.
Wow, that is so amazing. Yeah, that is so cool, because I remember I followed her on Twitter, and I've kept up to date with her too. And actually, a while ago when I planned my last, because I was supposed to go to Japan, I think like a year ago, we actually had like exchanged contact information, and I was gonna meet up with her there. Yeah, because I had cool. You know, because like that night, literally, there I can count on like one hand how many times I've been topped by women, and I definitely like she rocked my shit last night, and it was so great.
Yeah, when we were walking back to her apartment, we are like, wow, that just really happened. We did not expect that to happen at all.
I remember she just literally covered me in clothespins, beat them off my body, and then covered me in wax, and it was great. It was wonderful.
Yeah, so much fun.
But it was one of those things that I've like, because especially I'm sure you can like see in my work, like I pretty much always like I always top women. Like that's what I've come to find, like in my sexuality, like that's where I stand. Because for a while, especially in my career, I've literally shot everything. Like
you
everything.
definitely did.
And it's funny because I've actually talked about this in like interviews. A part of the reason why I was shooting everything is because I've always been a lifestylist. I've been a lifestylist since I was 18 years old. And a part of the reason why I was shooting absolutely everything is because the person that I was dating at the time was I was in a high protocol DS dynamic where he was my sub and I was his mistress, and he was only comfortable with me doing stuff on camera that did not reflect our sex life whatsoever, basically.
Oh, that's a
so
thing.
like didn't want me to do pegging, anything like that. So like it's funny because what I would do is I would go on set and do all this crazy shit, and then I would take it home and I would like implement it in my sex life. And then like I left that relationship and then just kind of really like solidified myself in my career, like where I am in my sexuality. But yeah, I literally can count on like one. I think there is literally like only 3 women I've ever let top me, and the other one is like Goddess Tangent. I let her top me,
definitely.
And like
I can see that.
But it's like not on camera, like in our personal lives, like
okay.
yeah, not on camera, but like off camera, basically.
So,
but like, yeah.
So like, how did you get into porn? Like, I know we both come from like kind of the same metalcore scene of like,
for sure.
Because you also played bass, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I did play bass for several years. So I started getting into porn because, like I said, I was a lifestylist. So I was on FetLife, and I made a FetLife profile just for personal reasons. And then I had a producer contact me who was a tickle. I had a tickle producer and a bondage producer contact me. And they were like, you are so attractive. Do you want to like make money? And at the time I was in cosmetology school and I was also working at McDonald's. So
were you in Miami or Tampa?
No, I was in Tampa. I'm born and raised in Tampa. So that's like where I got started and where I've kind of like remained in things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
that's so cool.
Yeah. Tampa, I tell people all the time, like Tampa is literally the fetish capital, in my opinion, of like the United States. Basically, there's so many fetish producers here now. Maybe like Vegas has kind of like taken a little bit of our power, but like Tampa and like, you know, Miami, Florida, like there's so much fetish in Florida. So yeah, I got offered to get tickled for $100 an hour, and for somebody that was working at McDonald's for like $7 an hour, I was like, what?
That's real money then. Yeah.
So then like I did like a shoot, but actually now that I'm thinking about it, I also like when I was like 19 on Collar Me and Collar Space, I had a girl.
Oh my god, I had that. I forgot about that.
Yes, it even but you used to be able to use it for like work stuff. So I had a girl in my cosmetology class who was like, I go on this website and I do Skype shows with men and I humiliate them and I do role plays with them and I flick them off and they pay me for it. And I was just like, that's crazy. Okay, sign me up. So we started doing that, and then I kind of got on FetLife and like explored and shit like that. So technically I've been doing sex work since I was like 19 and I'm almost 30.
Wow. Yeah, about the same here. Like so like what stuff inspired you to get into the industry? Was it just kind of being in the lifestyle already, or did you see people making stuff that you're like, that's really cool, I want to make something like that?
I guess it also just like, I come from a history of sex workers. Like my grandmother, who's in her late 70s, opened up one of the first sex boutiques in Tampa, like ever. She used to have like this vintage lingerie, but there was like this back corner where she would sell sex toys. And this was like literally like in the 70s, like when it was still very like taboo. And she would have like old school kind of like porn that to our, we're like, what, this isn't even pornography, you know? And then from there, my mom was a penthouse model, a hustler model, and she was on the Playboy 360 channel in the 80s.
Wow.
So yeah, and then from there she became a dancer. So I literally like I grew up, and then when my mom left the industry when I was born, but then she became the marketing director for the Dollhouse here in Tampa, and she used to book all the featured dancers. So growing up, I don't like to say that like I was like just exposed to things, but my mom's mentality about sex work is like she was very open with me, not like you know, showing me things, but just like once I got to an age, like being open about the dialogue and things like that. So I kind of always liked the idea of it because my mom was always her own boss, and just I just really dug it. So, and I kind of like always have just been into like adult stuff because I come from like an anime background. So
I
was watching like curvy BDSM shit like for a while. Like I tell people all the time, the reason why strap-on literally is my biggest thing, whether it's with women, men, it's my biggest thing. And that's definitely from my exposure to like Yuri and Yaoi and like the whole like uke seme bottom topping kind of like vibe. And actually I've talked about it on Twitter. Growing up, I actually experienced a lot of like body dysmorphia because I was very confused. Like I didn't know at this time that like strap-ons existed. Like I had no idea that you could be like a girl, you know what I'm saying? So it was very like, because of the pornography I was consuming, like was so, or like the fan fiction was so like about, men and penetration and stuff like that. It like, I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, I want to top, basically, was the whole thing. So I couldn't understand. And then when I finally came across like female domination and that kind of stuff, it was like this thing woke up and I was like, wow. And then I got into like Futanari and shit. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. So.
That's so amazing. It's so cool that you're like from a line of sex work. That it makes sense. It's just like when you see like something like during the Olympics where it's like, oh yeah, this person's dad did running, this person's grandma did running. Like if it's around you, you're more likely to, you know, get into it and have better experiences in it. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy. Like honestly, my mom supports me so much, but if I'm going to be completely honest, in the beginning it was difficult because my mom comes from a day and age of sex work where it's very hard to find her material. Like it's like archived because this was all like physical copies before the internet. So her main thing that when I started was that like, she was just like, you know, this doesn't go away. Like in your day and age, like it's up there. I hope that you don't want to do anything else because like, this is it. And for the first couple of years, she still wanted me to like do cosmetology and makeup, but now she's just like, my mom is literally my biggest fan, my biggest supporter. It's so funny. One of my favorite memories is like we were in a store and we were shopping and I never wear socks ever. I never wear socks. I just always just bare feet. So I had a pair of socks on and we're walking through the store and my mom looks down at my feet. She looks up at me. She goes, are those for business or for pleasure? Because she knew that like
she knows. What was the answer to it?
I was like, business mother. And, like, and she actually we had like a little tip because for Christmas she bought me a pair of Vans and like the other day I told her, she's like, where are your Vans? I was like, oh, I sold those. She's like, are you fucking kidding me? I bought those for you for Christmas. And I was like, mom, though, but I made like a lot more than you paid. And she was like, so where's my percentage? I at least want my money back for your sneakers if you sold them for more.
Oh my God, that's so cool that you have that experience.
Oh, for sure. And actually, like, we just told my grandma finally, like, what I do. And now my grandma, who is literally in her 70s, like, is again full on, like, I'm very, very lucky and blessed to have like powerful women in my life that have very much, because like I've never have had like male figures or anything. Like the women in my life really are my only family. So just to have like my only family support me is like, I'm very thankful, and I never take that for granted.
Yeah, it's something that so many sex workers just don't have, and having your family back you in all of it is just such a great thing. For like sure. For real.
For sure. Especially, because like I can just talk to my mom, and especially because my mom marketed sex work. So she comes up with ideas sometimes, and she'll literally call me and be like, have you thought of this? Like, and I'm like, yes, mom, I actually already do that. Or she'll be like, wait, this is a great idea for a scene. Like, you should like have the plot be like this. And I'm like, thanks, mom. But like,
so your mom's pitching you porn ideas.
Yeah, literally. She's trying to micromanage like my porn scenarios.
Oh, wow. So yeah, you have like a momager in porn.
Basically, like she's like, I follow you on Instagram, but I won't dare look at your Twitter because there's just a lot of shit I don't need to see on there.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what were your first few shoots? Like, what did you start doing? Because when you started, were you in that relationship where you're like, hey, I'm not going to do stuff that I do in my relationship on camera, or was that later on?
Actually, that was later on. So my relationship when I started doing porn was with somebody that I was with for like 5 years before. It was completely vanilla, but it was like I dated this person when I was a teenager, and then you start growing and you start learning about yourself and realizing that things that when you were younger, your fetishes, your identity. And so I started doing porn while we were still together, and it just transitioned into like, it literally was a situation of like, I turned 19 or 20. I realized how much money I could potentially make if I seriously pursued it. So I told this person, like, I'm quitting. I'm going all the fucking, I want to see it all. I want to figure it all out. And I also wanted to explore my sexuality. So we broke up, and I just kind of just full-fledged went into literally doing absolutely everything. So my first stuff was all bondage, tickling, and then it quickly turned into like me shooting pro scenes for a little bit because I was signed with an agency and I did like vanilla porn, and that was a great experience and I don't regret it, but like it was just so fucking boring for me, honestly, because I'm not somebody
your heart's
that
not
like
into it.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't like the kind of content that I wanted. And like atmosphere, like I'm not trying to like talk shit about like mainstream LA because it's a great for a lot of people.
That's fine. There's enough LA people on this podcast. You can talk shit about any city you want.
Like, I'm not trying to talk shit because like, all I'm saying is sex work is so diverse that like what works for some people just isn't what works for some people. Love LA. It's great for them. It works for them, but it just wasn't for me. Just like how these same LA people are probably like, oh, she's from Tampa. She does sex work in Florida. Oh my God, that fucking trash can state. But like, honestly,
I mean, I have not been to Florida very on purpose lately, but
well, that's a whole different, okay. But yeah, so it just wasn't really the vibe. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And also like I was learning more about myself and my work started reflecting that more. And also I was just like tired of making other people money because when I was doing porn, it was still very much like producer, like there was no OnlyFans. There was not a lot of people self-producing content. There was options. There's always been clip stores or whatever, but it was very much like this. Oh God. I mean, I started doing, like I said, I started in sex work 1920 and I'm almost gonna be 29. So this is 9 years ago.
Oh, okay.
8 years ago.
I think that's about the same time I started. Yeah, because I started when I was like 19, 20, and I'm turning 30 like in a few weeks.
Yeah, so like there just wasn't as many options for performers to kind of like take control and be their own boss, so to speak. There was just still very much relying on producers and the money that you got from that. And it was just a really weird time because at that same time, like the pay rate was going down.
It was so far down,
like bad. And I was just like, huh. So I started kind of immediately, like I've had Eclipse for sale and a ManyVids and all these other clip stores since I basically started. But I only started seriously producing after I quit basically shooting mainstream. So ever since then, I'm pretty much entirely retired from shooting for other people and only do like content trade and my own shoots basically.
I think that's definitely the best way. It's just like so many other people's shoots are just so much like emotional energy and just like people simply not having their stuff together.
Yeah, exactly. And that, and just like, I don't like the idea of making other people tons of money when like it's my face, it's my image, it's my, you know, and there's
everything.
Like no royalties, like in my case. So I was like, I just kind of rather distribute it myself and do all the work. But I'm sure, you can relate to that entirely.
Definitely.
Because I mean, with you and your stuff, and you like literally as long as like I have known you and seen you, you've always kind of done your own thing too, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same. It's just like really early when we both got into this industry, like the first few years, it was still so much based on like, oh, if I can get 3 gigs, that's rent, and it's just not that way anymore. Because those sites just start paying less and less and less. And it's just like, but so I first knew you because you were like doing both like subbing and doming. And then like it seemed like you made a very intentional choice just to be like, I'm just gonna start doming. Like what happened that made you do that?
Literally just because like I said, I've been doing sex work since I was 19. So from 19 to 29, like that is huge years of like sexual development, like learning yourself through your own experiences. So it was really just like a reflection of like me and the choices that I wanted to have for myself and really like what I felt comfortable pursuing. Because for a long time when I first started, it was like, oh, you look so young and you're so tiny. So like, even though you have tattoos, let's still like push this girl next door image. And I'm like, I've never been the fucking girl next door. I was the alternative weird fucking goth girl. Okay. So like,
yeah, of course. Right.
So yeah, just like wanting to really produce content that I was actually really into, because I like look back at some of my vanilla scenes and I'm like, damn girl, you're a damn good actress, because that is not how you were feeling at all about that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to some of that. There's some porn I have where they Photoshop out my tattoos and stuff, like on the box covers. And like I take piercings out and just like all that stuff, where it's just such a different experience that they kind of start like, okay, you're a young pretty girl.
That either, because like you can't do that on video. Like the video you see everything.
So different. Yeah, the cover, no tattoos. The actual scene, I have all my tattoos. So
so I'm honestly, it is really cool. Like despite the craziness that is online sex work right now, I think it is really cool because like we both come from a background where we really didn't always have all these avenues where we could put ourselves out there, and now we're in a position where we can, which is really cool. So yeah, I'm thankful. It's like one of those situations where like we've come a really, really long way, but there's still so much work to be done. But like, I don't think that we should like negate from like the progress that has been made, because it's like, it took a long time to get there for a lot of different reasons in porn. So but there's still work to be done.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there was just so much gatekeeping before when we both got into the industry, where it was still so much like, you have to win this company over, you have to win this casting director over. And now it's just like, I just don't think there's people like that in this industry really more. Maybe agents in LA porn. But
because it's like, I think we finally realized that we kind of like took the power away from the companies in a way where we really sat back and we were like, no, it's us. Like, it's us that sells this material. It's us. We just need to sit down, get our shit together and figure out like how to market like they do, how to sell ourselves like we do. And then we get all the money and it goes to us. So
yeah, it's so great. Honestly, like just not OnlyFans, ManyVids existing, just like I think changed so much because it's an accessible thing to put it up on, where it's not this thing that's so, I mean, clips for sale is pretty complex when you first log in.
See, everybody says that, but like I guess because I've been on the platform for literally like 8 or 9 years, like it hasn't fucking changed, like literally in like the 8 or 9 years, still the same.
It looks like it has not changed.
Like, the admin is very outdated. I like, but a part of me is like, I guess I'm like a boomer in that regard. I'm like, please don't take it. I'm gonna have to learn something now. But yeah, no, just because for me, like I have the many vids and it makes me money, but like clips for sale is like, I guess for me, I have so many different things because I just don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I've never been that way. I will never like pledge allegiance to one of them because I'm like,
you can't.
Any one of you could stab me in the fucking back
at any moment. It's like payment apps. If you have Venmo, anyone who ever keeps any amount of a balance there, I'm just like, don't do that. You can't trust it.
Yeah, I'm the queen of telling everybody like cash out. I don't care
every
if it's
single
$25,
yep.
you get it out.
Yeah, my partner has nothing to do with sex work. They had like, I think it was like 600. I'm like, don't do that. Never.
No, just out. I'm like,
just no.
Out. Just come out. They might.
I'm
you
like, don't
you
ever
might use
trust
the
them.
wrong emoji one day. You never know. Like, please get it out. Yeah, no, that's why honestly part of the reason too why I've finally geared toward a membership site is because like I'm gonna be able to feel a little bit more secure because it's like, you know, using using different resources and having different payment processor options. And also like I'm really just interested to see like with cryptocurrency and what happens with that. Like I don't know, it's just so like the future is so up in the air right now. It's just a weird time. It just kind of like, am I gonna have a job in 6 months? Am I not gonna have a job in a year? Like what?
I think you will. I think it's just gonna be different. No matter what
totally.
it is. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Like I made a point on that on my Twitter as I was like, you know, the one thing that they can never take away is like the demand. Like people are always going to want it. It's just like keeping in with your customers and, you know, your clients, like keeping that stream of connection and like not relying just on your Twitter, not just on your Instagram. Like we got to kick it old school with like email listings and shit like that. Like we really need to use as many possible resources. So no, you're absolutely right. I think I will always have a job. It's just like adapting to different, you know, I might have to adapt to like a more like outdated. My mom was like, bitch, I used to put that shit on VHS and send it in the mail because I don't even want to hear it about your life.
That's so weird. It's just such a whole different era. Yeah, I interviewed my last interview with a performer in their 60s and just like, porn's just such a different thing because they're like, oh yeah, like my husband and I would go to the video rental store and rent a porn. And I'm just like, crazy. In my head, I'm like, wait. I know like, you had to at the time, but I can't imagine just not like, oh, I'm gonna pull up porn.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, so I'm getting hopeful. So
yeah, I mean the OnlyFans news today. This interview is on the 25th of August, so it's when OnlyFans just went back and they're like, oh, we're not kicking everyone off.
I think it's because like, you know, literally MasterCard came out and they were like, we don't know what the hell they're talking about, why they're trying to throw us under the bus because like we didn't like just strong arm them or anything because that's what they tried to say in their original statement. But the thing is like, I'm not trying to dive deep, but like I was around when OnlyFans first, like, so I know like the sketchy means of how that platform just came to be in general. Like it's a concept that was stolen from another sex worker in general.
Of course
like,
it was.
So of course it was. So like, it's not like, you know, I have never, like, I am so thankful that it really has given all different types of sex workers like an online presence, but I have never invested myself 100% in it because I don't trust it. I've never have, but I'm not an idiot. I'm a businesswoman. So I'm going to ride the trend. I'm going to ride the wave. But now that they've kind of like it's basically like, they're like, you know, I'm just going to put my content, like I'm still going to use it, but I'm going to put it everywhere. Like now I'm going to use the multiple, because there's a bunch of platforms right now. There's a lot that I'm not going to use. And there's some I'm going to take advantage of as the traffic, you know, but that's why also I said on Twitter, like my advice to people is like, take this as a wake up call just to like sex work. There's so many different ways to make income. Like you need to explore these now, like diversify your portfolio. think about using clip sites that like sit down and have like an admin day and just like really like spread yourself out, because what do you have to lose other than gaining more clients, gaining more customers, and making more money? So I mean,
yeah, I think no matter what you're doing in sex work, whether it's camming or posting scenes or films, be on as many platforms as possible, because you just never know. You just never know what's going to happen.
Because I've seen so many, like I've seen Kink Bomb go down, and I've seen like, I don't even remember what it was, like the OnlyFans before OnlyFans, and then like,
I mean, Tumblr was the big one for me. I had so many followers on Tumblr, and like the queer porn community was so big there, and now it's just gone.
The queer and also like just like queer for BDSM, like all that stuff was very like, I had like a Tumblr following for my, like while I was doing vanilla scenes, I was being like my kinky self on like Tumblr, and I literally have fans messaging me being like, I remember you from Tumblr, this is crazy, like but now I can find it here, you know. So but I think that like a lot of Tumblr, I think we've kind of completely like migrated that over to Twitter at this point in the stage. But now it's like, I don't like, Twitter is just like every day I'm like, I log on, I'm like, oh wow, my account isn't suspended, it's gonna be a good day, like because you don't know.
Yeah, I'm like very shadow banned, where I've been at 20,000 followers for 4 years now.
I have had literally 30,000 like I've been at that for years, like 4 years. It's wild now.
Yeah, it used to grow so much before.
Yes, and it's crazy because like you also see like, you know, the how your engagement is affected by the shadow ban, because it's like, if one of my posts gets like 200 likes, I'm like, oh my god, and I have 35,000 I have 35,000 followers, like that's a small percentage wise, like that's nothing. That's so yeah, you know, it is what it is. You just kind of keep trucking along, but I'm just gonna ride the wave for as long as I can.
Definitely. So when you pivoted to like shooting mostly like lesdom content, is that just like what's inside of you, and like is that the porn you also watch, or is that just like everything for you?
If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I literally do not consume pornography at all anymore. Really? At all. I don't like, I'm so like, I read a lot of fan fiction. of fan fiction. So yes, I read a lot, like, you know, and I like, I'm queer, like all over the spectrum. Like I'm very much like, I'm into a lot of things. So I read a lot. But yeah, I don't like, if I watch porn, it's like super amateur grainy, like shot with your cell phone. Like just really, I can't watch like beautiful, like I like the type of quality like I produce or like studio, I cannot watch it because it be like, I know what goes on behind the scenes and I'm thinking in like a technical mindset, or like I'll be like, is that a freaking light stand in the corner? Like what is this? Like I think of it, like I start picking it apart. Like that probably how like filmmakers feel like watching movies, or musicians feel like listening to music. They listen to music differently when you're a musician. It's like the same concept basically. So yeah, but my lesbian domination content definitely is just like, it's just what I feel like is inside of me. And it's also what I enjoy, like just making for me. Like I, you know, like I've done a lot of things, like I've topped a lot of men in my life and like domed a lot of men. And like, that's still something that I'm into, but just like, there's just something about like, lesbian domination that just like, it's a lot more, I don't know, like the connection on camera and just, it gets more so much passionate in my opinion. And just like really also just creating nothing feels better for me than creating that safe space for another woman to express herself in that way. Like making her feel like, I'm telling like things that men should do, but they slap.
Yeah,
them,
of course
like,
they don't.
Like checking in, making sure that she's okay, and like creating this safe space where like, once the cameras are rolling, like we're done. Like I'm not trying to pursue you, nothing like that. Real, like, this is a very professional, like we just had this awesome scene and it was good for you, good for me, but like now we get to go home and do our thing. And just I just really like creating safe spaces, because I have a lot of girls around here that I just love working with because of that. And like I just worked with Maria Jade today, is a performer that I've done a lot of my lesbian domination scenes with in the past, and we just always just we have a great time because she loves it. I love it. And I only do scenes with other queer performers. Like I am very like, I'm not really into like the straight for pay kind of thing. Like it really does show on camera. And it also makes me uncomfortable because I'm like, I feel like this is almost in a way a little unconsensual because you're not really into women. So you're putting yourself in a situation that normally you wouldn't want to be in. So like it makes me feel a little like, you know.
I can definitely feel that. Yeah. Like lesbian BDSM hits so many levels for me. Yeah. It's very hard to watch because I know most of the people in the stuff in North America and in Western Europe, but the Eastern European lesbian BDSM, my favorite now, I know none of the people. But like, I find it so cool knowing the other side of it though, that it's like, it's just two girls being like, hey, I have this really crazy idea and I want you to fuck me up for like 30 minutes.
That's literally what it is. Like,
and it's amazing. Like, it's the gayest thing, like on so many levels. Like, that's so gay. And that's what I love so much about it.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because literally every girl that I've ever shot with, my lesbian domination scenes are so much more intense because like they really like want it and like they are very, it's so funny because I make jokes of like sometimes I just feel like a service top because they're just like put your boot on my head and I'm like all right, go off, okay. Like literally one of my most recent scenes, my friend Reagan Lush, we make awesome content together because she just really loves it. And she was like, before the scene, like I had no plans on doing this. She asked me, she's like, is there any way that you can try to put your boot on my head? Like, please, can you? And I was just like, I don't even know if my legs will stretch. I'm thinking like the logistics. I'm like, is my cock gonna fall out? Like, how do I angle this correctly? And like, wait, but it happened. And I was so glad that we did because it was like really, really intense.
I've literally had the same conversation on set before. I'm like, can you fuck me and step on my head at the same time?
Today it was funny because like we like I could tell like my scene partner was like really getting into it, and like we have like gone over like consent stuff like way back in the day, but we hadn't shot like together in a long time. So I was like, okay, kind of like reeled it in a little bit, but like she was just like kind of like giving me the eyes like come on, like get like, and I was like okay, and then it like my hand slowly just like on her head and I'm just like putting my full body weight on like it's really awesome because I don't know, it is really cool. Basically there's just nothing more rewarding than being like getting off camera and like the girls are like, God, I haven't been digged down like that in so long, and I'm just like yeah.
Yeah, that's like the thing. I think, I mean, obviously like lesbian BDSM is my sexuality and all that stuff, but like I think just pure performance, like you see that moment because like with BDSM scenes it gets real at one point in the scene, no matter how much you're both like, oh, we're friends, this is a work thing, at some moment it gets real. Like you see that moment, and I don't think you really see that moment as much in like mainstream porn because you're not pushing yourself to that level.
No, definitely. I like, honestly, like I shot like one of the most intense lesbian domination scenes I've ever shot like a couple of days ago because it involved a performer that really was adamant of like, I want you to beat the shit out of my breasts, like beat my breasts.
Yeah.
So like she was very much into like, you know, and just, you know, like I want you to like give me strikes and then just like I'm just gonna get face fucked. And I was just like, all right, like game on. And it was very like, it was cool like being able to like be with somebody like that was like that. And it doesn't always have to be like that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it doesn't have to be, but like
when it gets there, you're just like, all right, we are here.
I want to talk to you about this because there's not that many people who like mostly shoot lesbian BDSM. There's like a handful of people. So I'm like, you're one of the few people I can talk to about this who will really get it, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm mostly definitely like now, like going forward, I mostly am gonna be shooting lesbian BDSM just because also, like I said, like I want more of it and I want more like high quality stuff. And there's also just like, it's about like finding your niche and like there's not I can think of maybe one other person in my area that shoots like lesbian domination. So like, again, like shooting lesbian domination scenes that are also on like so I guess I should reel it back, because there's people that shoot lesbian domination, but this is not a competition, but it's very like soft core lesbian domination. Like it's very like, and you can kind of almost tell that it's very, or like you can see it's like kind of watered down, and that's totally fine. That's the thing for other
there's
people,
all
but
different
like
kinds of everything.
But I want to see like hardcore, like spit the running, because one of my biggest things is like running makeup, like all that stuff. Like I want to see that. Like I want to see a kink intersex level of like BDSM, but like on, and also in like an amateur way, where like clip stores and things of that nature, where you can produce that kind of content.
Yeah, I feel like when I first moved out to the Bay, I was working for Kink, but I feel like with their stuff, it was so much like very much still a scene, and it's still very much like a lot of straight for pay and stuff like that. That I think it's so cool that people are now, like queer people are reclaiming this and doing all these same hardcore scenes, and it's now accessible where you can shoot it on your own and you don't have to have this huge team or a giant fucking castle full of gear to shoot,
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like, it was really cool. Like as a kinky person, like it was like my goal to shoot for kink, and I did shoot for kink. And it was funny because like I bottomed for kink. I did like the training of O, which was probably one of the like more intense scenes that I've done. But like definitely the most intense like scenes that I did was like for intersect. Like that was a little bit like level up as far as like the bondage went and everything. So it was a great experience for sure, but it still was like, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, don't mean to expose, but like my scene partner was a vanilla porn performer, like had never really done BDSM, and this is the dom in the scene, you know what I'm saying? Whereas like intersect was really cool because it was lifestylists.
Yeah, they're all actual lifestyle people.
London Rivers,
they've actually come up on this podcast a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it was like actual lifestylists. So that was a completely different experience, because you were also like getting like, kink was very good about like, limits and whatever, but I really liked about intersex that it was literally on a fucking whiteboard. It was huge. It was on a whiteboard. Like you literally wrote your limits, what was okay, so that like they literally had something in their face at all times that was like, you can't do this to her. She's okay with this. So like just really that shooting for that company was awesome, because it was also for me like learning about myself and like what like pushing myself. And also I really am into heavy bondage now as a top, and just learning about like really pushing a bottom. Like for me, I'm kind of like old guard in the way that like I think it's super important as a dom to learn what it's like to be a submissive, to know that mindset, to like, I can honestly say now at this point in my life, everything that I do to other people, I have been put through myself. And I think that's very important, because it makes me more knowledgeable. I pick up on like physical signs and like emotional cues and things of that nature. So
yeah, that's so cool. I feel like, most of my experiences with kink, it was definitely like more of kind of a little bit more watered down.
Yeah.
Where I feel like with companies like Intersex, or when you're working with lifestyle people, it's just the real stuff, and you get all the
for sure
fun hardcore things that you might not get elsewhere, because you're working with people that are doing it safely.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely. So like I love now, like kind of like obviously on a much smaller scale, being able to like create that same kind of environment for the people that are in like my area. And I'm really lucky. I get to work with a lot of awesome women, and I have a whole talent pool of producers here, and it is really cool. And it's my hometown, and I've definitely thought about like branching out. For a long time, I thought I was going to move to Vegas, just as like the industry started like growing more over there. But like, I just love, honestly, I love Tampa, where I'm from. My family, my mom's here, my grandma's here, and like, I'm comfortable here. I have all my friends, and like, I've been able to successfully run my business here for a long time. So I'm just like, well, why leave? Because, Vegas has its perks, and so does, my little neck of the woods. So
Yeah, I think it's just like so important to remember that there's so many people making porn in all over places,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not just LA and Vegas, which I feel like so many
Yeah.
people just think that, where they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you're in porn, you live in LA or you live in Vegas, and that's how you make porn.
And honestly, I really don't understand why we get such a bad rap. Like, I don't like, okay, so like Miami, maybe, but I'm not from Miami. I don't live in Miami. I'm not like, I think that also that's the thing too, is people forget about Tampa and St. Petersburg. When
Mhm.
they think of porn, they think of Miami. And there's some great companies out there, but there is also just some amazing like people in Tampa and St. Petersburg that you can work with. And we also have like lifestylist events in Tampa. We have lifestylist dungeons in Tampa. Like we have our
Wow.
own little kinky community here that like full on exists. We have fetish parties, we do all that stuff. So yeah, it is very like, I think it's underrated. And also because there is so many people to work with here that it is easy to run your business here because there's so many people, and we have new girls every single day that are just like, I literally can't tell you how many.
Wow.
I've gone to like a wing house and a Hooters, and you have a few drinks and they're like, oh, so what do you do? And I tell them and they're like, wait, what? Can I shoot for you? Like, I'm serious. And these girls, some of these girls, like some of these, one, literally a girl that me and one of my producers that I work with, we found her in a wing house, and she was a fucking Vixen contract girl like a year later. Okay. Like
What? Wow.
yes, literally. And
That's
we found her
wild.
in a wing house, and she started shooting fetish and then went to AVN, got picked up by an agency. And then, yeah, like for real. Yeah.
You never know who it's gonna be. It's so
You never
wild when
know.
you see that stuff in porn, because it happens so fast. Like we
Yeah.
both,
I mean, I've
yeah, we've
had,
been in this industry for a decade. It feels like 50 years.
yeah. And
Like you've seen everything.
yeah, it is pretty cool to be able to say that too. And also it really, I love being in a position now where like there's a lot of performers specifically in my area that are just like getting started. And it's really awesome being able to be that person that
Mhm.
like, I have a lot of performers that now come to me and are like, hey, like, can I ask you questions about this? Or like, is this person safe or this? And I have like this much experience that I can be like, okay, I'm not trying to tell you what to do or how you run your business, but I just want you to avoid from getting in situations that I got into that I would have liked to have this advice, like kind of like being a guide and mentor for a lot of girls. Like my best friend, we became best friends because I actually started mentoring her. Like she was a stripper, and then she came to me and she was like, I want to do this instead. And like started mentoring her, taught her everything I knew, started doing her scenes for her, like, you know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
yeah, and we became best friends. So it's just really awesome. Like, because I literally came from nothing. I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money, and
Yeah.
now I can financially support myself. So giving women the tools to have the same things that I've been able to build for myself is so fucking awesome.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't realize for how many people it's a ticket out of poverty, it's a ticket out of,
Totally.
just unstable situations, and
Totally.
like how important that really is. I feel like that's just
Yeah.
not highlighted enough when people
And
talk about porn.
especially like a lot of girls, at least that I have been kind of like that are new in this area, are all like women that have just gotten out of college and they have tons of student loan debt,
Mhm.
and like they want to still pursue like their, but they're just like, how am I gonna, like, what in the heck am I gonna do with all this? So I'm like, hey, well, if you're serious, because it's a full-time job. But like, I have a friend that like, just finished her master's degree, and she's just taking a break for a year before she goes out into the world to like just stack up while she can, with doing fetish. Because like the thing is like for her, she's like, she's gonna be able to do this prestigious job because like all she does is like show her little feet and she wrestles dudes.
Yep.
Like somebody's gonna see that and be like, okay, so she's in bikini wrestling and those are her souls. Awesome. We're gonna still hire her to be
I'm
our
like I'm
doctor.
like that's so basic in Florida, I'm assuming. I'm assuming that's just
Oh,
base level in Florida.
like that, like that's what's awesome too in Florida, is like there's so many different content creators. There is literally women here that have been able to build like little empires just off their feet, just like we have different like fetish performers. We've got girls that are just wrestlers. We have girls that are doing foot fetish. We have girls that like, I definitely am on the more scale of like, I kind of shoot like what I view as like porn. Well, I mean, it's all porn. Everybody's jerking off to it, but like mine's a little bit, mine's on the more extreme end of the
yours definitely is. Yeah. I wouldn't be relating to your porn if it wasn't. I wouldn't be like, we know what we're doing. Yeah.
So like, but it is awesome that there's just so many of these avenues. Like, I think is great. I think is sick.
So. Yeah, that's such a cool little porn scene there. I had no idea, honestly. Yeah. Like, all I know about Tampa is I know that there was a huge death metal scene in the 90s.
Yes.
Huge. And then I know it's like the stripping capital.
In the 2000s, early 2000s, when the like with the scene being phase, we had like the like hardcore.
What bands are from Tampa?
So like, I wouldn't even say that. They were like, okay, so we had the skate park of Tampa, which literally was the main metalcore venue. Like when I was 15 or 16, that's what we did every weekend, was go to the skate park of Tampa and see shows.
The same, going to shows. Yeah,
it was like local bands. It was a great opportunity for local musicians to put on, like we got like touring band. Like, I mean, like this was like really hardcore. Like one of my favorite hardcore bands is Ceremony, who are from California.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, yeah, one of my favorite bands of all time. And like we got shows like that and like Thick as Blood, like all this like really like almost bro-core kind of thing.
Yeah, like the broy hardcore where there's like crews and shit.
Yeah, but we also did have like the more like punk hardcore that like I am into. And we had a big ska scene here. Like I've seen Mustard Plug.
Oh my God, really? They're from my hometown.
I've seen them all.
Yeah, Mustard Plug's from my hometown.
So I've seen some really awesome bands.
Yeah, we have the metalcore band. Do you remember the metalcore band Still Remains?
Yes.
Yeah, they're from my hometown. We also have our big famous one is Law Dispute.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love fucking them. They're so, oh my God. In high school, that was my shit.
It's so funny because when I was in high school, they played local so much. It got to a point where people weren't showing up to their shows anymore. So then they got like really famous on tour, and then they came back, and now they're like the band. I guess that's kind of like hometown.
How it was. I think that our version of that is definitely Under Oath, because in the beginning, Under Oath,
I forget they're from.
Under Oath is from Tampa.
I forget that. Yeah.
Yes, and so like that's basically Under Oath. Like they would play so many shows. Like we would literally not, like my friends were like, yeah, we used to play hockey with them. You know what I'm saying? Like street hockey. Like it was like that. They played so many times that like people still, and then they just became like this huge. And then like Orlando, like A Day to Remember is from Orlando.
Yeah, so I was wondering where A Day to Remember was from in Florida.
Yeah. So like they like all those people, like those bands like kind of started at the venues that I used to go to, because it's kind of sad because Tampa actually got rid of a lot of their local music venues. Like before the pandemic, like this happened like a couple of years ago, there used to be a lot of opportunities for local metal bands, because it was just like this era of like that's what all the kids were doing. Like we all had MySpaces and we all went to fucking hardcore shows.
Yep. Yeah. 100% same world. Yeah. 100. Yeah, I feel that so much. So when did you start playing bass? Like when did you get into bands?
So basically I started playing bass when I was in middle school, because I played the upright bass and the electric bass.
Oh, really?
I played both. Yeah. So I played in orchestra, and then I also started playing the electric bass on the side. But I started playing the upright bass because I'm also really into psychobilly. So I love horror pops. I was like, I want to be the badass bitch with the bass, because I'm
That's
like
cool.
I'm like 5'2". So the idea of playing like this crazy big instrument just like really like appealed to me. And then I started playing the electric bass because I was actually really into like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I loved Flea.
Oh, really?
I think he's an amazing bassist. So like that's kind of like what I started playing bass because of that too. But definitely just like punk music. Like I've always really like, it's so crazy. Like my music taste, I'm very eclectic, but like the reason why I started making music was definitely because of like punk music and like shit like that, because the bass lines in punk music and also the bass lines in like rockabilly and psychobilly are very like thumpy. And I love that sound. So.
Totally. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I started playing in metalcore band. I mean, before my metalcore bands, I played in a black metal band because I was like super into like Cradle of Filth.
Sick. So, like, I was into Cradle of Filth.
Yeah, of course you
middle
were.
school.
Of course you were. This is what happens. You like play in these bands and then we both become BDSM performers. That's like the Cradle of Filth arc. Of course it is.
That was like when I was into Cradle of Filth, I was also heavily into like it was like a weird time in my life. I was into Cradle of Filth, Mindless Self-Indulgence,
Oh yeah.
Combi Christ, and I was also a hardcore juggalette. I don't know where the fuck that. It was like a monkey wrench like thrown into like.
Oh my god.
I was like a goth juggalette, but also listen to like industrial punk metal. Like when I tell you my music taste is all over the place. It's all over the place. All over the place.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm from Michigan, so we had too many juggalos around. So you're just like, no. And then my black metal band, we had like, so I was in a black metal band in high school. So we like wore corpse paint, like ripped up Bibles on stage, but we're all like 17. Hardcore. We played like the school like talent show. We ripped up Bibles and shit.
I'm not even gonna act and lie to your face and say that I am still like a juggalette. I still listen to fucking psychopathic music. I do. I still am a juggalette. I've been 13. I've been down since I was like 13. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, like I'm good
guilty
on that.
Pleasures. It's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, I went super hard into the Lady Gaga fandom after like all the metalcore stuff, so that's where I went.
That's so funny. I never really got into Gaga. I thought her looks like amazing, but like I never really got into like I've never really been into like pop like that. Really? I guess I'm really into synth pop. Like I love 80s pop music. Mm-hmm. Like my favorite band of all time is Depeche Mode. Like that is my shit. Depeche Mode and IMX. I'm a huge IMX and Depeche Mode fan. So like I really like synthy music. And right now I listen, it's so funny because I'm literally like, today it's like, all right, we're gonna listen to our juggalette music. And then tomorrow we're gonna listen to dark wave and post-punk, and then we're gonna scribble a little like industrial in there. Like I'm all over the place with music.
Yeah. I got super into Gaga because I was like in metalcore bands, and I was also a concert promoter, so I would see all these like metalcore bands and pop punk bands. And after like a year of that, I fucking hated all of it. Because you see like all these generic metalcore bands day after day after day. Everyone sounds the same, like all that stuff. And then I saw Lady Gaga and she's like wearing like full latex. And I'm in the Midwest, so I like still don't fully understand this stuff. Yeah. And still like figuring out BDSM. And then she's like wearing a strap on for like weeks at a time. I'm just like, damn, this is very interesting.
That's so funny because like for me, that's how I kind of got like into like 80s music, was because like especially Depeche Mode, they're very like BDSM, like with their outfit. For sure. Like Martin Gore was wearing like full on chest harnesses and shit. Yep. And like and then also so like that kind of like era. And like I'm a huge like George Michael fan, and he's like was very much like very leathery, androgynous, very like leather daddy with a dangly earring and a denim and a leather jacket. And of course like Judas Priest, all those kind of like bands are very much just like all over.
I'll still fuck with Judas Priest anytime.
Totally. So because that's where like I guess people like they kind of like as a dom you kind of like develop a style almost. And the reason why I really like am geared toward like I love leather jackets, I love denim, I love just leather gloves, all that is because of that. Like I love George Michael, it's like I am taking from like kind of like the leather daddy, and like because I just love that look. I love wearing a little hat. Like I'm really into that whole thing. It's so good. Just because it makes me feel like that's like what I like to see. So it's like really cool, especially now with like my bright pink hair. It's just like it's like this bubblegum daddy feel.
It's such a good look. Yeah. Do you follow Reb Helford on Instagram?
I don't think so. No.
You should. It's so good. He posts so much gay like related stuff all the time.
I am so out of the loop on Instagram because of like you want to talk about shadow ban. I'm shadow banned to shit on there, like way more than I am on Twitter. Yeah. Like hardcore. I have the same amount of followers on Instagram as I have Twitter, and it's been like that for a long time. And like I get like 1,000 views on like one of my stories is like a good day basically. But yeah, so I just don't really like do too much on Instagram anymore, just because I use it now more because I'm really big into F1, so I basically just use it to
I
like watch
definitely saw
drivers
that.
and shit.
I was actually I was wondering if you were gonna bring that up. Yeah, I grew up on F1 like really hardcore growing up.
Oh, me,
Like during the Michael Schumacher era.
oh
Like,
my, see,
yeah.
My boyfriend now who I'm with, he's the one that really, I'm not gonna sit here and act like, oh, I've loved F1 for forever.
Oh, you're good.
Like,
I'm very glad to talk about this.
My boyfriend really got me into F1 because it's a passion for him, and like it's one of those things that he introduced me to, and like I really I latched on, and like to the point where like now there's been times where he hasn't been able to watch races, and I still I mean, but we watch YouTube videos. We about just like I've always been into motorsports though. Like I grew up around like not only was my family like sex workers, they were also bikers, and my grandfather was like an old school car mechanic, so like he had like crazy tricked out like sick like cars and like Maseratis and shit like that. So he was always really into that and kind of like put that down on me too. So I don't know how I didn't come across F1 sooner on my own, but once I did, like I mean, I have McLaren hats for days. Like I'm very much like, it's all I talk about. It's all like
I see you post about it so much. I'm like, that's so cool. I mean, the reason you probably weren't into it is probably because we're in America.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is, because it doesn't get the same exposure.
Not at all.
Not at all. So definitely like, but yeah, now my Twitter says like it's an F1 fan page as like a joke, because that's all, like it's just become like something I'm really passionate about, because I was always an artsy fartsy kid. I never got into sports ever. I wasn't ever into sports. So now to like finally be like, I get it. Like I get like watching like, and there's just something about it too, because with F1 there's so much drama,
so much politics,
much, like it's juicy, like it's almost like, and like with Drive to Survive, like the reality show, like
I still haven't watched it yet.
You need to, because it's like reality, it's like Desperate Housewives but for F1 basically, like just like the drama and like the but yeah, it's really it's an awesome sport. And yeah, so I'm really thankful. It's also great to have something to, like that me and like my partner, my boyfriend, like have something to share together, that like we're just super, it's what we do on the weekends. It's like something that we really enjoy and share together. We also play like racing simulators, like we're just really into like cars in general. So
yeah, I'm like definitely into racing simulators. I grew up racing go-karts and stuff.
That's so see, there's like a league that you can join in like down the street from my house, but you have to like make a qualifying time basically. So me and my boyfriend last night in bed, we were really stoned and we were watching, we were like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna fucking do it, we're gonna join this team, and we're like, this is
it K1 speed?
I don't see, like I like didn't, he like knows all the details.
Okay.
Like, I didn't, like he's the one that was like, I really, and I was like, no, I want to do it too, like I'm going for it. And like, so I don't know, it'll be really fun though. I'm excited because it's a nice little like hobby. So
yeah, it's really fun. I did it I think I did the one by me. They do like monthly races that are like the competitive ones, and I did I think 3 or 4. And then one time I like went to a corner and this kid, probably like 12, hit me at like 40 miles per hour. And I was sore for like a week after. And then I'm like, my God, maybe I need to not risk my like doing sex work and then being like, I'm injured from go-kart racing. This was like 2 years ago. And I'm just like, maybe I shouldn't do this. But yeah, it's really fun.
I guess we'll see. I hope that I don't get like, God, that would be very embarrassing, being like, sorry guys, I can't work because I got in a go-kart crash. Like, what the fuck?
I don't think I missed any work, but it was definitely like just being sore for days and being like, yeah, definitely a little bit of drama, because when you're doing that, there's like all like the interpersonal stuff, and then they'll like try to talk to you about it. I'm like, I don't want to talk to you, 12-year-old child. Like, you just ran into me. I'm fine. I don't want to talk to you. Like,
I'm gonna go home. I'm an adult that just likes to go-kart. Leave me alone.
I know, yeah. And I'm like, of course, the only girl doing it. And it's just like,
of course, too.
Of course.
Too. I thought about that too. I was like, am I gonna be the only? I'll probably be the only. I hope I'm not the only girl.
You
I
probably
hope I
will
don't.
be. It's okay.
Yeah, I hope I'm not the only. And it's not even just like I'm like the average girl. It's just like, no, I'm the bright pink haired, covered in tattoo girl that wants to join the racing team.
Yeah. You haven't gone since the pandemic, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
I was doing that when I was like 13 or 14, like Arizona too. And that's when it's the same center I go to. It's called K1. Now it's all electric, but it used to be gas. There's probably one in Tampa. I'm sure there is. Yeah, it's a cool experience because you can just go and drive against random people on random days. So that's like, if you're pretty good, you can be against like 8 dudes and like beat their ass. And then they're like, why did this girl beat me? And like act all confused.
See, I got like a little confident because we went to like the Andretti racing.
Wow.
Yeah, they had like an Andretti like racing, and we did the go-karts there like for our birthday. That was like our birthday trip, as we wanted to do that. And like I was against like a lot of and I got like P3, and I was like, okay, I think I can do that. I was like, all right, go off, let's try to pursue this.
Yeah, definitely. If you're ever in here, we're in the same city, let's go to a go-kart track.
I am totally down for that, girl. Let's do it.
100%. There's like not many people I can talk into that, so
I am so down to do that.
Sure. My dad was super into F1. He wanted to name me after Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna died like the year before I was born.
Yeah.
So that was my dad's favorite driver. So
God.
My dad was super into that. I grew up being super into F1. I just remember my dad waking up at like 6 a.m. for like F1 qualifying and races because they're all in Europe. So when I was on the East Coast, but now it's like on the West Coast, it's just so far. Like it's waking up at 4 a.m. It's just like, I'm not going to do that.
No, my boyfriend has an alarm set for when it's time for qualifying. Like literally it's like, oh, I'm up. And then like I have like friends and like followers are on Twitter that are like, we're not going on your fucking Twitter feed. You post too many spoilers. None of us are up at this time. Like get the fuck out of here.
I was really into it during like Schumacher's entire run. And then I think I like missed a season because it used to be on, I think it was called Speed Channel back in the day. And then it was like completely new teams. And I'm like, who's Lewis Hamilton? Why is he winning everything? Yeah. That was like right in the beginning of his thing. And I was just like,
now he's like the F1 god.
Yeah. So like, I think the last full season I watched was when Kimi Räikkönen was at Ferrari. And I think Fernando Alonso was there too.
Okay,
so it's been a minute.
I cannot stand Fernando Alonso. I think he's an arrogant son of a bitch. Like just the way that he talks to like the pit crew and just like he's just got like this sense of entitlement, and it's like, calm down. You won 2 world championships like forever ago. Like take several seats, sir. Like he's just very like because I really get into like listening to like the radio and stuff, and just like he's super it's one thing to like be in the moment and be like fuck, you know what I'm saying, but he's like super disrespectful, and I just don't like, I'm not into that. Like I'm not into it. I really don't like his attitude, so I'm just like, but Kimi Räikkönen is so hilarious. Have you ever seen the footage of when he crashed out in the race? I can't remember what it was, but he literally walked to his yacht and just
that was at Monaco. I remember that. Like, that's such next level shit.
What a fucking power move. Like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna go on the yacht. Like
I remember because the camera like followed him from his car, and they're like, oh, it's a long way back to the paddock. And then they just like follow him, and they're like, oh, he's on his boat now. It's just like, oh, all right.
He's on the boat starting to drink now. He's done. And I think he's hilarious. Like interviews that I've heard of him, like he's just funny. He is just funny. I'm a really big, like now with F1, I'm huge. Like I said, I'm a really big McLaren fan. I love Lando Norris. I think he's precious. And he just also just like, I just am really into like the wholesome, like he's a little Twitch streamer, and like, you know what I'm saying? It's just very wholesome. And like, I love Lewis Hamilton, especially because he really uses himself and his his fame for good. Like he is like, really getting into like creating more opportunities, because F1 is a very expensive sport to get into. So like just creating opportunities for people from different backgrounds that normally wouldn't have these opportunities. Like he's working on the Lewis Hamilton Foundation, which I think is really amazing.
I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with sex work, where it's like, for some people it's a way out. And for him, it definitely was. Like, if you hear his family story, they were broke, spending any money they have to essentially invest in his racing career. And now he's arguably one of the best F1 drivers ever.
I think it's amazing. Like there is actually so many stories like that within F1 of like these families that literally like sacrifice so much for their children at like a really young age to like pursue the sport. And like, it makes it so close knit. And it's so beautiful to watch like all these families like at the races and like all excited. Cause it's like, wow, like I couldn't imagine like being a parent, having done all those sacrifices for your kid and like seeing them go succeed like that. Like that must be such just like a heartwarming, just like,
Definitely. I'm really happy we got to talk to F1 for a second. I don't care if people have anything to care about it. I don't care. This is staying in.
I do not care. It should be very clear on social media how I feel about if people say something. It's crazy. It's actually my fans love that I love F1 because I have a lot of friends from Europe. So they're like, oh my God, you're not watching the race yet? Guess I gotta wait to talk about it with you. You know what I'm saying? So it's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's just also just becoming so much bigger in the United States than it was. Like when I was growing up, nobody knew anything about it.
Well, because we're finally getting because they had Texas and now we're gonna get Miami in 2022, which I don't care if I have to sell everything in my home.
I'm sure you're gonna be there. I already know that before I even talk to you today. I'm like, you're gonna find a way to be there.
And not just be there. I want like the experience. Like I don't want, if I'm gonna go, like it's gonna be all because it's disgusting like how much they charge for like paddock experience.
Everything
it's literally like to like be with the drivers, see the cars. It's some of these teams charge between $8,000 to $10,000 for it's nuts.
F1 is such a whole different level
because like, it's not just money. It's not like Mercedes and Aston Martin have enough money or anything, right? Like they're really struggling.
I was actually maybe it was because I knew this was going to come up. I was actually watching a F1 comparison with IndyCar because I watch a lot of IndyCar just because it's very accessible in this country.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just kind of all around. Just like the amount of money to get a paddock pass is like $15,000. Where if you go to an IndyCar race, it's like $100.
Well, that's like, we literally went to the race in St. Petersburg, me and my boyfriend, and we literally were this close to Roman Grosjean, like this close. And had that been an F1 thing, I think we spent like $60 on the tickets in total. And like, I was like, okay, this is probably the cheapest amount I'm ever going to have to pay to be this close to an F1 driver.
Yeah. I mean, they have quite a few now. It seems like it's really kind of becoming the trend. I mean, I think Montoya is still running there. Yeah, I know Fernando Alonso is occasionally doing stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting how that whole thing has changed because it seemed like when I was so into it, it was so rare to ever even think about anyone from F1 coming to the United States and racing in a series here.
For sure. So it's super exciting. It's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah. So, you've shot like kind of all over. It sounds like you've gone to LA, you've gone to New England to shoot with Intersex. Where's your favorite place to shoot overall? Is it shooting home in Tampa?
Definitely because like I have to switch for a second because my phone is about to die, so I'm gonna plug in. So my microphone might have like seem a little different.
You're all good. I'm only gonna take up like 15 more minutes of your time. So
no worries at all. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, likewise.
So my favorite area to shoot is definitely like my hometown, just because like I rent out like my own studio space and it's like right down the street from my house. So it's just very convenient for me to like, I really love like the separation also of like you know, not working in my house and like having somewhere to go where like it's just really like, okay, I can just do my thing and then come home. Like it kind of creates that like getting out into the world experience, even though it's down the street.
That's so cool. Yeah. Living in the Bay Area, it's just so wild because it's like if you have an extra room to shoot in, that's viewed as such a luxury. Where I'm like, so much the rest of the country, it's like, oh yeah, we have a studio space, it's separate, and you can actually do that.
Yeah, no, it's really funny though, because like my studio space is literally like in a residential neighborhood basically.
Oh really?
So yeah, but it's kind of like hiding in plain sight almost. But it's really cool. Like I have neighbors on one side that are totally cool, and then I have the neighbors on the other side that have literally called the cops on me like 3 or 4 times.
Really? Just over like you're shooting porn?
It's not even, it's so crazy because it's not even like, I think one was like a tickling shoot. The other was like a fucking like, there was girls outside in bikinis and they were putting each other up on their shoulders. Like really like, I hate to say it was like the fact that the wife next door just was not down with like all these young women like coming in and out, and like her husband like, you know, being like craning his fucking neck every day. But it definitely was that. And it's really fucked up because one time she called the cops, and how she got the cops over so quickly is she lied and said, I think that there's underage children there. And knowing full well that there was not, but that's how I literally had 6 cops at my front door. And I was like, that is not fucking happening. I said, that is not. And I literally see the lady outside and I'm just like glaring at her like, you are disgusting. Like, how could you do like that's horrible.
Yeah, that's like
horrible.
A real fucked up thing to say. Also, just like I feel like that should be like almost falsifying a police report.
It like seriously. And I remember like I'm staring outside and I'm like listening kind of, and she's just like, oh well, like I didn't know, it sounded like it could have been. It's like, no bitch, you saw the girl that like walked in here, she was an adult, you just got again mad. And so, and they literally sat outside of the studio for at least like an hour and a half just to make sure that that's wasn't what was taking place.
Yeah.
So like ever since then, like I like give her the fucking death glare every time I see her outside. I'm like, you bitch. Like,
that's so fucked up. I don't think I've ever had any people ever realize I'm shooting porn in places. Which is really good. Just like I feel like most people are so oblivious. I've even had neighbors I shared walls with where I'm like cam in there, and then and they're like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I cam. And they're like, oh, like where do you do that? I'm like, here. And they're like, really? Just no idea.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so like I'm lucky, and I think it's really awesome. Like I said, having that separate space, it is really cool. Yeah, I'm actually gonna redecorate it here soon because it's just been the same like blue walls and white furniture for about like almost 2 years now, and I'm so over it. It needs to be redone.
It's so I'm cool actually you have a space though that you can change up like that.
Yeah, for sure, because the owner of the house is actually one of my really good friends, and he's also a producer. So like I can literally do whatever the fuck I want there. Like whatever I want. Like I don't have to worry about the landlord like knowing what's going on. Like I can design it however I want. I can like have models in and out. So it's really awesome.
That's so rad. So I have one more question for you. Thank you so much for talking. I feel like we've covered so much, like BDSM, F1, like just softcore BDSM, real hardcore BDSM, everything. So if you could magically change one thing in porn that tomorrow would be completely different, what would it be?
Oh my God, this is a really fucking hard question. I don't mean to get like, I don't know. I don't mean to get like, you know, all like about like what's currently going on, but I would just really like, I guess not, it's not even like really within porn. I guess I would just like really like to see in general, just like living the dream of porn just not being so stigmatized. Like I just would like to have more job security. Like I have job security, but I would like to know that like it's solidified, and just I would just really like also I guess in a way it kind of is like where I wanted it to be, because when I first started I wanted performers to kind of have the power and kind of take away from like, not take away from the companies, but, you know, make their own money and like realize that you can do it on yourself and see. So like, it really is like blossoming into that. And just, I just would honestly also like to just see like for porn, like just the people that, especially with like the OnlyFans thing, like we literally built this fucking platform and then all these influencers started using it. And like, it's so crazy. Like these people are making millions of dollars, but when this OnlyFans thing shit went down, they were like, oh, well, I'm okay. Cause I'm not showing my asshole. I'm just
because you're
overpriced bikini pictures. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
like Disney Channel people.
Yeah, exactly. So I just like the people that like have, and also like within porn, I feel like there's still just sex work in general. There is a lot of stigma against other forms of sex workers with the whole wave of, you know, OnlyFans creators. Is like, I saw like the other day, like an OnlyFans creator say like, well, I'm not making porn because I'm doing findom, or I'm not making porn because I'm not a sex worker because X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, yes, you are. Like, you're not,
though.
Like, there's
you're
no
too
better,
new to realize it.
Yeah, and just like this stigma still against like full service sex workers, and just like, I feel like we've come a long way, but I would just like to see more unity of being like, we are all under the same umbrella. You're no better than anybody, no matter what your fucking percentage is or whatever. Like, we are all under the same umbrella.
For real.
We need to like treat each other good. Like, I just also would just like to see like, can we just like all just be a little bit nicer to each other and like realize that there's enough money out there for everybody, and just like, you know, this competition and like, you know, all this bullshit, sometimes it just like, it bums me out, like people just like talking shit, and like, just stay in your own backyard, make your money, and like, let's just keep moving along. And just more unity, like I said. I don't need to sound like a fucking old school hippie, but just like more unity and acceptance of, you know, everybody. Like, I think we need to care. We need to care about full service sex workers and trans women and trans men, and, you know, just the queer community and like everybody. Like, I just feel like we've come a long way, but like I said, there's still like, I think one of the most beautiful things that I've seen is really just like, specifically for like crossover performers, it used to be like really, really hard, and they still deal with a lot of stigma and stuff, but like now it's like, there's more options. There's more like,
it's more normalized.
Becoming, it's more normalized. And just like, also like, for so long, and there still is like this stigma of like working with trans performers and like all this, and like your agent,
it was definitely a lot more before,
to work with trans performers and stuff, or
like
that.
Performers of color. Like that was another thing too, where girls are like, well, I can't shoot with this guy because he's black, because then that's gonna lower my rate in the future. It's just like so fucked up.
It was just so gross, because like I did go out there, and it was still very much like my agent was trying to tell me, well, no, you can't do that because you need to wait to get your IR rate. And I was like, what the fuck is an IR? Like, what? I'm sorry. Is it a penis? It's the same thing as like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm taking a dick. Like, it doesn't matter, you know? So like, I don't. So I like that, you know, that is slowly but surely, like I said, like, I feel like we've made a lot of strides in the right direction, but we still have a long way to go. And also, again, with like the stigma against, you know, I don't mean to get in anybody's personal politics, but the stigma of our performers that, you know, are HIV positive and things like that. And, you know, educating yourself and realizing that, you know, this is why there's PrEP and all these other things. And just like, so
I think that's a very good answer. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm gonna wrap it up now. Where can people find you?
So you can find me, actually, my whole landing page right now is going to be yesmissroper.com. That's literally where you can find all my social media links and everything. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is at Raquel Roper XX, and my Instagram is the same, at Raquel Roper XX. And you're gonna want to follow, especially if you're into lesbian domination, because like I said, I'm launching my membership site soon, so that's really exciting. And yeah, thank you so much. It was so awesome
Thank
to talk with
you.
you. I was really much looking forward to this.